What game are you playing? Dating and relationships are like video games. When dating, boys and men are the gamers. In a relationship, women and girls are the gamers. The most popular game in the world. It's so popular, it doesn't even have a title, it's just called the game. However, there are two different games. One is called the dating game and the other is called the relationship game. In the dating game, women and girls are the game developers, whereas in the relationship game, men and boys are the game developers. The game developers develop the rules, difficulty levels, create the achievements, rewards and trophies. These games are very different. A lot of people don't understand that the dating game and the relationship game are different. The rules and rewards have changed slightly over the years, but the main games are still the same. In order to understand the difference, we have to look at the history. How the dating game changed. 1,000 years ago, the dating game was mostly played by parents, where the relationship was the main focus. The reasons could be alliances, property, or social standings. The society and the culture set a value on the boy and the girl. In some cultures, the value of the girl was determined as greater than the value of the boy, meaning the boy's family would have to pay a bride price to the girl's family. In some societies, a dowry was provided by the bride's family. Personal consent from the boy or the girl was not always taken into consideration. A bridal price was more common in a traditional sense, where a dowry was more modern. You can see this, even today, where a dowry is replaced by the bride's family pays for the wedding or a bridal price is replaced by gifts to the family. Over 200 years ago, 1800s, the dating game was more often than not played by boys and girls. There was a more formal courtship, with social events, balls and dinners, but often under supervision. Parents or guardians were heavily involved in the process. They often arranged or approved players based on social standings, economic stability and family connections rather than the feelings of the players. Public displays of affection were rare, and couples were usually chaperoned. Economic considerations were often central, especially in the middle and upper-class families. A dowry or financial stability could be a deciding factor. Courtship gifts was a common part of courtship, showing affection and intention. The concept of marrying for love gained popularity. This was influenced by art and literature. 1920s, the dating game concept as we understand today began to emerge. Young people started to meet casually one-on-one, which was a shift from previous structured courtship practices. Dating often took place in a more public and informal setting, like dance halls, movie theaters and clubs. The increasing availability and affordability of automobiles, cars, gave young couples more freedom and privacy. Cars facilitated dates away from the watchful eyes of family. With the economic changes, liberal attitudes towards gender roles, urbanization and media influence, parental control over young people's social lives started diminishing, giving young adults more freedom in choosing whom and how they dated. 1950s, dating in the 1950s was characterized by a return to more traditional values, following the upheaval of World War II. Reinforcing traditional gender roles, with men as the providers and women as homemakers. Although less formal than earlier decades, dating was still seen as a precursor to marriage, where asking a woman's parents for permission to go steady was part of the courtship rituals. While young people had more freedom than in previous generations, parental approval and involvement in their children's relationships were still significant, particularly in discussion of marriage. 1970s, the dating game in the 1970s was notably different from previous decades, reflecting significant cultural and social changes. Heavily influenced by the social upheavals, including the sexual revolution and the women's liberation movement. Dating became less formal and more relaxed with the notion of casual dating gained popularity. The focus on individual expression and self-discovery, influencing people so seek personal fulfillment. With the availability of birth control, like the pill, played a significant role in these changing dynamics. Living together before marriage became more accepted. The increased focus on individuality and independence was a driving factor as divorce became more accepted and common, leading more single adults to re-enter the dating scene. Overall, the 1970s were a decade of experimentation and transformation in the realm of dating, moving away from the structured conventions of the past. 2000s, the dating game in the 2000s experienced again a significant shift due to technological advancements and changing social norms. Online dating became popular and fundamentally changed how people met and interacted. The online platforms allowed individuals to connect and communicate way beyond their immediate social circles. Mobile technology made communication immediate and frequent. Gender roles continued to evolve and dating dynamics became more egalitarian. Hookup culture and casual relationships gained traction among younger adults. Reality TV influenced public perceptions of romance and dating practices. The rapid pace of life and work influenced dating, with a tendency towards shorter, more casual interactions, setting the stage for the even more digitally integrated dating landscape that would arise in the following decade. How the relationship game changed. 1,000 years ago, 1000s, marriage varied significantly depending on geographic region and culture. A marriage had the focus on families, alliances, inheritance, economic or political rather than love. Marriages were tools with a goal, with little to no regard for individual happiness or choice. The boy might be assigned a price, paid with a dowry, or the girl might be assigned a bridal price. The main focus was the alliance between families. Over 200 years ago, 1820s, marriage varied widely depending on region and social class. Heavily focused on social status, economic security, and family alliances. Gender roles were rigidly defined with men as the breadwinners and women as the homemakers. A marriage often involved transferring, combining or securing property and wealth. Marriages typically occurred within the same social class and crossing social boundaries was uncommon and often discouraged. In Western societies, a dowry provided by the bride's family was more common than a bridal price, giving the appearance of women being a package deal together with property or wealth. 1920s, there was significant progress in women's rights, education and employment. While men were still typically seen as breadwinners, women's increased presence in the workforce and pursuit of independence began influencing the power dynamics within marriages. Divorce became more common and socially acceptable, and legal reforms facilitated divorce processes in some regions. Characterized by a blend of tradition and modernity in marriage, with evolving social norms and economic conditions influencing how people approached relationships and family life. 1950s, now marriage was characterized by a return to more traditional values following the disruptions of the Great Depression and World War II. Emphasized by the nuclear family as the societal norm, with clear roles for husbands as breadwinners and wives as homemakers. The post-war economic growth allowed many families to achieve middle-class status, purchase homes, and build stable family lives. Marriage was financially sustainable for many young couples. Gender roles were clearly defined and families aspired to emphasize comfort and a family-centric lifestyle. Marriage was seen as a key milestone. 1970s, marriage underwent significant changes influenced by social and cultural shifts. The women's liberation movements of the 60s and 70s challenged traditional gender roles, advocating for gender equality in education, the workplace, and marital relationships. Women increasingly sought careers and autonomy, influencing marital dynamics. People spent more time pursuing higher education and career opportunities before settling down. 2000s, marriage continued to evolve in response to technology, social and cultural changes. The trend of marrying later continued, with individuals prioritizing education, career, and personal development. There was a growing acceptance of diverse family forms with significant progress towards marriage equality for same-sex couples. Balancing career and family life continued to be a significant issue, with dual-income households becoming more common. Gender roles within marriage became more fluid, with an increasing emphasis on shared responsibilities in childcare and household duties. What does this translate to? Over the years, the lines between dating and relationship have crossed so many times, it's a blur. It is no longer two clearly separate games, but seasons of a TV show. Marriage as a concept have lost most of its value. Marriage in 2025 is about as significant as going steady was in the 1950s. We still have the two games. Women have the dating game and men have the relationship game. However, the relationship game doesn't have a clear start or operating rules. What does this mean? Well, mostly it means that men and boys no longer take responsibility for the relationship and women no longer stop playing the dating game. What does it mean? Let's look at how the roles have changed in the relationship game. 1,000 years ago, male, primary breadwinner, agricultural or trade mostly, protection, physically and through alliances, legal head of household, legal affairs and representing the family in public. Female, household management, cooking, cleaning and overseeing servants if the family was wealthy, child rearing, raising children, ensuring education and moral upbringing, economic support. While primarily a domestic role, women often engaged in economic activities, such as managing small plots of land or participating in family businesses. Shared responsibilities, family alliances. Both partners might be involved in maintaining and negotiating family alliances, although men typically took a lead role, religious observance, participating in religious activities and ensure the family adhered to religious norms. 200 years ago, 1820s, male, economic provision, legal authority, public representation, female, household management, child rearing and education, economic contribution, shared responsibilities, moral and religious guidance, social alliances and networking. 1920s, male responsibilities, primary breadwinner, men were still largely viewed as the primary financial providers for the family, working outside the home to earn a living, legal head of household, men usually retained legal authority in the family, although women's rights began to expand during this time, public and social representation. Men often handled public affairs and represented the family in community and business matters. Female responsibilities, household management. Women continued to manage the household, which included tasks such as cleaning, cooking, shopping, and managing domestic help if applicable. Child rearing and education. Women were primarily responsible for taking care of the children and their early education, a role that was still considered central to their responsibilities. Increased civic participation. Women began to gain more public voice and engage more in civic activities. Shared responsibilities, social engagement. Social life was an important aspect of marriage, with both partners often participating in social functions, clubs, and community events together. Moral and religious guidance. Both partners were involved in instilling values and moral guidance in their children and maintaining religious practices within the family. 1950s, male responsibilities, primary breadwinner. Men were expected to be the primary financial providers, working outside the home to support the family. This role was strongly emphasized in the post-war economy and cultural narratives. Head of household, men held the role of decision-maker in many aspects of family life, including finances, major purchases, and family governance. Public representation. Men usually dealt with public affairs and represented the family in business and community events, reinforcing their role as the public face of the family. Female responsibilities, domestic duties. Women were primarily responsible for managing the home, which included cooking, cleaning, sewing, and household shopping. The image of the happy housewife was popularized and idealized. Child rearing. Women were expected to be the primary caregivers and nurturers, focusing on raising children and managing their education and social activities. Social organizing. Women often organized family social activities and participated in community events, playing a key role in maintaining a social network for the family. Shared responsibilities, family morality and religion. Both partners participated in instilling moral values and religious teachings, attending church, and maintaining the family's social standing. Community engagement, social life and community involvement were important, with both partners often engaging in activities such as community events, charity work, and social clubs. 1970s, male responsibilities, breadwinning role. Although men were still typically seen as the primary breadwinners, the economic necessity of dual-income households began to emerge, leading to more shared financial responsibilities. Role adaptation. Men increasingly participated in household tasks and childcare, though this shift was gradual and varied widely depending on individual families and cultural backgrounds. Female responsibilities, increased workforce participation. A significant number of women entered the workforce, seeking economic independence and careers. This shift challenged traditional domestic roles and redefined women's contributions both at home and in society. Feminist influence. The women's liberation movement of the 1970s advocated for equal rights, including within marriage, impacting expectations around shared domestic duties and decision-making. Shared responsibilities, household and childcare duties. There was a growing move toward sharing household and childcare responsibilities, although traditional divisions of labor persisted in many families. Decision-making and leadership. Couples increasingly viewed decision-making as a joint effort, reflecting a desire for more egalitarian relationships. Financial management. As more women worked, couples began to share financial management roles in the home, facilitating discussions about spending, savings, and investments. 2000s, male responsibilities, shared breadwinning. While men continued to participate significantly in earning income, there was an increasing expectation of shared financial responsibilities as more households relied on dual incomes. Involvement in parenting. Fathers were becoming more involved in parenting and domestic responsibilities, participating actively in childcare and household management as part of a broader move towards egalitarian relationships. Female responsibilities. Career and financial contribution. More women pursued careers and contributed financially to the household, balancing work and family life, a continuation of trends from previous decades. Navigating work-life balance. Women often managed complex demands of professional and personal life, as societal expectations continued to evolve around gender roles, shared responsibilities, household duties. Many couples work towards a more equitable division of household tasks, negotiating roles based on work schedules, preferences, or efficiency rather than traditional gender norms. Parenting and decision-making. Parenting, even more so than before, became a shared responsibility, with both partners involved in decisions about child-rearing, education, and family activities. Financial decisions. Financial planning and management were commonly shared, with both partners participating in budgeting, investing, and major financial decisions. Now, what is happening to our games? It might be a bit difficult to notice, but the main thing that has changed over the years is that the purpose of the games have changed. To explain this, we have to look at the historical changes to the purpose of the games. This might be best explained by diagrams. 1,000 years ago, the dating game was played by the parents or guardians, and consisted of a formal courtship leading to negotiations before entering the relationship game. 200 years ago, 1820s, the dating game was still mainly played by parents or guardians, but with the addition of courtship between the boy and girl. Letters writing and courtship gifts were exchanged and they were getting to know each during the dating game. 1920s, there was a large shift in the way the dating game was played. Women became the lead developer of the dating game. The parents or guardians played a drastically smaller part in the dating game, but still had a part to play. The dowry and bridal price played a smaller role. But there was still economic considerations that could make or break the entrance to the relationship game. 1950s, the dating game was rapidly being developed by women. Influenced by movies and books, the focus on romantic courtship increased substantially. The role of the parents or guardians was reduced to where their only role was to verify the relationship game as a responsible and safe path forwards. 1970s, the dating game was rapidly growing as the female developers included the perks from the relationship game, while neglecting the responsibilities. The parents or guardians no longer had a role in the dating game. The introduction of cohabitation showed that couples could prosper without the need to end the dating game and start the relationship game. The main change now is the lack of vetting the safety aspect of the relationship game. 2000s, while the dating game was rapidly growing, the relationship game was decreasing. The notion that the relationship game was more important than the dating game was no longer the case. The only part that remains alone in the relationship game is responsibility.